Hello, this is Lesson 5. Lesson 5 talks about the death system, specifically in the United States, but we can't have a conversation about modern-day perceptions and events without taking a historical view as well. So we will also be presenting a historical view and non-US-centric approach to this death system concept. So many times this death is an individual experience for the person who is dying, but also their family. We tend to personify that and not consider the greater implications for society and for larger groups than ourselves or maybe our family. And this is the task of society, actually. So we as a society, as community members and towns, have developed ways to not only cope with death and the issues surrounding death, but also the issues surrounding with individuals who are dying or who may unexpectedly die because of accidents or other acts of God, or because of disease or other issues. And this lesson does a really good job of introducing this idea that death is much more than a personal experience, but also a systematic experience in terms of the entire community having to participate and cooperate to process the event. We also look at some of the negative organizational and systematic ways that death has been handled or encouraged. In my notes, I begin my notes. I'm a World War II, a student of World War II and the 20s through the 40s and early 50s. I've always been attracted to that time period, and German Nazi concentration camps are perfect examples of a system of death. And so we can look at these systems of death as positive symptoms that help society cope with the unmanageable, or we can see that these systems of death can be in the truest and the most negative sense as possible, that can actually encourage death and allow death and encourage death on a grand scale, almost as if we were manufacturing some inanimate object. Another issue I hope we can look at is trying to acknowledge and pay attention to the death systems that may surround all of us without thinking. Our local churches are part of the death system, hospitals, hospice offices, and an example that I bring out that I want everyone to look at is the local funeral director. So I'm asking students to look at the definition and the job description for a funeral director on the national scale, and look at some of the requirements for the Commonwealth of Virginia that you have to make sure you have and pass to be a funeral director. And we have a nice video that was recently shown actually on CNBC on the business of death that takes the perception of funeral directors and the National Funeral Association and how we process and how families process death for their family members. I've also included information on Flight 1549. This is the flight that Sully Sullenberger piloted and actually ditched his plane in the Hudson River in 2009 in New York City. And it's extremely interesting for us to take a look at what he said about the experience and what the crew said about the experience as well. I've also included the actual cockpit recordings of between the airport and the pilots during this period of time. Again, I want us to take a larger systematic way of perceiving how society attempts to avoid death or even process death if the worst happens. And in this case, the worst could have happened, but did not. We talk about geographic locations in terms of there may be particular geographic locations that are symbols of death, and I want you to consider some of those. We actually have a discussion board where I ask you to actually go out into the field and visit a local cemetery that's in your neighborhood or in your community, and make some observations for us and share those observations with the class. And we of course have the Lesson 5 journal article or journal posting to complete, and a 5-question test. So again, I hope in this lesson we can at least expand the definition of death to not only an individual experience, but an experience for society as well. Hope everybody is doing well, and let me know if I can help. Thank you.